Hi guys, welcome to Exploring Light. I am Sandeep Mathur, a landscape photographer based out of Delhi. This is the second part of my 3-video series on Lightroom workflow to merge multiple exposures for editing landscape images. Today I discuss a workflow for merging multiple exposures into a HDR Panorama in Adobe Lightroom. In our last Lightroom workflow, we had discussed merging and editing 3 bracketed exposures. This time we take things a little further and we merge 6 frames, each with 3 bracketed images, 1 normal exposure, 1 underexposed image and 1 overexposed image, 2 stops apart into a huge panorama. So we have 6 frames with 3 brackets, altogether 18 images combining to form a panoramic image. All these 18 images were shot on a tripod with a rotating pano head. If I had to give you 2 tips to shoot a panorama, the most important thing is to level your rotating base. And the second thing is to have a sufficient overlap between your frames, at least 30%. Also, I find if I shoot at a focal length of more than 35, it helps the stitching process. Even though you might have to take more shots to get the same field of view, but it is still most beneficial. Panoramas have a huge role to play in my photography. I shoot horizontal panoramas, I shoot vertical panoramas or retoramas as they are technically called, and you can also shoot a combination of both, which are especially useful if you are shooting, say, the inside of a cathedral or you're shooting Milky Way compositions. Similar to our last Lightroom workflow, our workflow this time will be merging multiple exposures into an HDR panorama, development of the raw image, shaping the light, color grading the image, color dodge and burn, and finally finishing the image. So without any further ado, let's meet in Lightroom. Welcome to Lightroom, guys. This is the first section of my tutorial merging HDR panoramas in Lightroom. Today I take you to the beautiful Lake Bled in Slovenia, and before we get down to the brass tacks of merging our exposures, let's understand why and how I would plan my panorama. Let's have a look at the Google location. You will see this is Lake Bled. This is the boardwalk. This is the position of my camera. This is the famous Bled Island. This is the Bled Castle, and the sunrise was going to be somewhere in this location. So I wanted to shoot the entire view in one shot. So I use an app called Planet Pro, which I'm sure is available on Android. I use the iOS version, and I will post a link in the description below. So we have to help Planet by entering a few data. I mark the limit of my shot, and this worked out to about 100 degrees. I input the focal length I wanted to shoot it. I try and shoot above 35 mm focal length, which helps to stitch the panos better. I would always shoot in portrait mode so that I get more of the elevation. Planet calculated that I would need to take 6 shots with a rotation of 17.5 degrees to get the entire view in one shot. Arguably, I could have taken this shot with a 16 mm ultra wide lens. I have a Nikon 1635 f4 lens which could have easily captured the same view. But ultra wide lenses have a tendency to push the subject back, and then in a single shot you do not get the same kind of resolution which a panorama would give you. That is the explanation why I would like to shoot a panorama. I will get a wide view with excellent details, good details, which I can blow up or I can print out really. Now let's look at our exposure. I have 6 frames. Each frame comprises of 3 exposure brackets: a normal exposure, a -2 dark exposure, and a +2 bright exposure. These three exposures will be merged to form one image. 6 of these merged frames will be used to form a big gigantic panorama. So without any further ado, let's merge these 18 shots, 6 into 3 brackets, 18 shots into one huge panorama. Lightroom will bring up the panorama dashboard. Some very few selections to be made. First is select a projection. For me, 99% times spherical works fine, so I select spherical. I don't know why Lightroom has a slider for this boundary wrap. For me, it should always be at 100, and that gets rid of any of these white edges. Auto crop, we will crop this manually. Auto settings, we will edit the image manually, so I leave it at that and I click merge. Now depending on your processor or your laptop or your PC, this could take a little bit of time, so I'll catch up with you guys once the merging process is complete. Here we are. This is our merged image, and if you check the info on this image, you will see it's some 15,500 pixels by almost 8,000 pixels. So it's a huge image. We actually don't really need such a big image, and let's first set the lens profile. Let's remove chromatic aberration, enable lens profile, and then I want to level this image. And the way I do it is I try the transform tool, set it on auto, and that does a decent job. So now let's crop the image. I want to place the island and the church on my thirds. So using the overlay guide for the rule of thirds, I place my church right on the third line. I want to keep these houses. I don't want to crop these houses. So maybe somewhere here, and then I can also crop it a little bit from here. That is our final crop, and this is the image we are going to edit in the next section in the raw development. Welcome to the second section of my tutorial on merging panoramas in Lightroom. In the previous section, we had merged 6 frames of 3 exposure brackets, a single panorama. We had checked the lens profile and we had corrected the level for the horizon. Now in this section, we are going to develop the raw image. The good part about merging images in Lightroom is that the final merged image is a DNG raw file. So our workflow is going to be pretty much similar to what we had done in the last tutorial, and if you haven't seen my last tutorial, I'll place a link below in the description. But it should be simple enough to follow from here. Let's go to the basic tab. The first step is that we change the color profile. First we change the profile to a flat profile, which gives us more leeway to edit our pictures. We add some negative contrast. Let's increase the exposure to this extent, reduce the highlights a little bit, increase the shadows, add some clarity, and maybe add some plus blacks as well, a little bit. That should be good enough. Now let's set the white balance. We take the eyedropper tool and try and look for a neutral area, a gray area, and let's try and remember these values, guys. Let's take a reading from here. So that's -24. We are mainly concerned with the tint right now. Let's take another value from this gray portion here, -10. Let's take another value from the clouds, -25 again, and let's take a value from here. That's -8. So we have a range for the tint. We have a range of -8 to -25, which means the difference is about 70, -17. And if I take a mean value, then it's 17 divided by 2 is, well, 8.5, but say 8 or 9. So I add 8 or -8 or 9 to -8, and we come to -16. So what I'm trying to do is look for a neutral tint, not leaning towards the greens, not leaning towards the magentas. For the temperature, let's add some saturation and some vibrance, a tiny bit, and let's see what are the colors available to us. We increase the temperature. It's all blue and gray right now. We have a tinge of yellow coming in. Some more yellows, and now I lose the blues. So the moment I lose the blues, that is the moment I want to stop. I think somewhere between 7200 to 7400. Let's go for 7400. Let's clean up the picture a little bit. I see some spots here. Not a lot. Yeah, that should be good enough. So with this, we move on to the next section, which is shaping the light. Welcome back, guys. Now we are in the shaping the light section. And now here we try and get the viewer's attention to our main subject, and try and take away the attention from whatever is not important to this image. So the main subject of our image is this island, the Bled Island. It looks like a flower. It's one of the most picturesque spots I've ever seen, and we want the attention of the viewer to immediately come to the Bled Island, and also then take in the other sides, which is the Bled Castle. So let's try and do that. Let's reduce the size of the image, take the graduated filter. Let's add a filter with a large feather. We reset the filter by pressing Alt and Effect. Let's add some negative exposure. Let's open up the shadows because we don't want to darken the island, the mountains, and the castle. Reduce the highlights, and I think that's all we do. Then we add another filter with the same settings, but this time we just restrict it to the sky, and let's remove this from anything that we don't want to darken. We just pull it back a little bit. The same filter, let's add a little bit of blue. And let's add another filter here on the water because we want to darken this water, and also we want to smooth out the water. So let's add negative clarity, negative texture, and negative sharpness. Yeah. After the graduated filters, let's add some radial filters. One for Bled Island. I've added a little bit of clarity here, and the exposure is at plus 35, and we add feather at 100%. Let's duplicate this and have another one here for the castle. You can just go to a bigger size of image so that we can see it better. And now let's add another filter as a vignette. So we will this time we want to go the other way. We want to uncheck the invert, so whatever is affected will be outside the circle, and we don't have to add any clarity here, and we want to add some blues. That's too much. Let's bring it down to about 20, and let's reduce the feather on this one. Say 50. Okay, I think that looks good, guys, and let's move to the next section, which is color grading the image. Welcome to the section where we color grade this image, and for that let's head over to split toning. Let's add the hue, decide on our hue. I am holding the Alt key while I move the slider, and I think somewhere around 30 looks good for this image. Let's see how far we can go with the saturation. 35, 30, say 40. Yeah, I think for this image we can probably go up to 40. Because we added some warm tones to our highlights, let's add some cold tones to our shadows. Again, we select our hue, say 222. Yeah, let's go for 222, and only a touch, not more, guys, maybe just 15. I'm satisfied with that. Let's have a look at HSL sliders. Let's see what the sliders can do for us. Let's add a little bit of red for the roofs. There's a lot of greens in this image. Whenever I have greens in my image, I like to add a yellow tinge to my greens. I don't like it when it's moving towards bottle green. I don't like that shade. So let's add a little bit of green. Add some saturation on the greens. That looks good. Let's move to the luminance, and let's add some luminance to the reds, a little bit of orange. Let's add to the greens a little bit of to the yellow, and let's pull back the blues. I see that there's not much happening when I touch the blues, so maybe I can use the color picker and pull the blues back. That's fine. This is starting to look good, guys. So if you want to see the before and after, this is where we started. We color corrected it, and then we shaped the light. And now we are just done with the color grading the image. And in the next section, let's color dodge and burn. Now we are in the color dodge and burn section. In this section we add some lights to our image and make it stand out. So I will select the radial filter, I'll duplicate this, bring it here, shape it to my requirements, and never forget the reflections, guys. We must have the same light on the reflections. Although the lights can be much dimmer for the reflections, we don't need the same intensity. So this is why I normally double the lights on my main objects and use only one radial filter on the reflections. The size of the radial filters is very critical, guys. Don't make it bigger than necessary. And let's add a few burn filters. I think I'm happy with that, guys. So that's it for color dodging and burn. And now we move on to our section on detailing and finishing the image. Welcome to the last step of our workflow, and we will first head to the detail section and let's have a look. Our sharpening amount is at 40. I'm happy with 40. Let's add a little bit of noise reduction, although in an image of this size and with our HDR merging, I don't anticipate there will be much noise. And as usual, I don't touch the masking because it tends to bring out edge glow. And here you will see that the edges will be absolutely sharp and very, very well defined. So there you are, nice and sharp edges, no question of any edge glow in this image. Let's head to the basic panel, and now I can add a little bit of contrast, not a lot, maybe 10. I think I'm pretty much done with this image. There's nothing more I want to do to this image. Let's have a look at the before and after. This is where we started after our merge process and the crop, and this is our final image. That looks good enough to hang on my wall. So with this I come to the end of the workflow, and I will see you in my concluding statements shortly. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed my HDR Panorama workflow in Adobe Lightroom. I'd love to hear from you guys. In case you want to have the raw files used in this tutorial to follow along with my process, just drop me a line in the comments below and I will send you the download link. We only ask you to like, follow and subscribe Xploring Light and me. And just remember guys, these raw images are being provided to you for only training. Please don't use them for any other purposes. We have more content similar to this lined up. The next and the last part of this tutorial is going to be on focus stacking, which should be out pretty much soon. We are also planning an advanced post-processing tutorial for landscapes, so keep watching this space. Finally, this is me signing off. Goodbye and thanks for watching.